Okay, we need to talk about this. There are loads of really powerful sim racing direct drive wheelbases coming onto the market at lower and lower prices, and therefore more of us are going to be tempted to buy these really powerful direct drive wheelbases. And the question is, do we need to? Do we need these really powerful wheelbases? How does it work when you have like a 25 or a 29 or a 39 Newton meter wheelbase when we're not all like the world's strongest man? How does that actually work? Well, I've done quite a bit of real world driving. I've done a lot of real world karting in my time. And so I'm used to understanding the forces that are required to manipulate your vehicle, whether it's a kart with obviously no power steering, or whether it's a GT car or a supercar with power steering. And so I put on the table here three interesting wheelbases. We've got the Velocity One KD3 from Turtle Beach. That's about 3 point something Newton meters. We've got the Logitech RS50, which is 8 Newton meters. And I've got the Conspit Aries Platinum, which is 20 Newton meters. And obviously you've seen me use like SimRacing 2 Pro 25 Newton meters, the MOZA R25 25 Newton meters, and the SimLab DD at 39 Newton meters. So how does this all work? Well, to just cut to the chase a little bit, I don't think this is really powerful enough for a lot of sim racing. I think this is great for kids. I think it's great to clamp onto the table and use casually. I think the pricing is incredible, but I don't think the power is enough to really get into, say, even GT racing, or definitely not open wheel racing. It just doesn't have enough resistance for me that lets me know what loads the car is under when I'm going in and cornering. And this is a really important point. We're not trying in sim racing to replicate the same feeling as you get in a steering wheel in real life with the same feeling you get in a sim racing steering wheel. That might sound really weird. No one really talks about this, but I'm just going to talk about it. When you're driving a real car or real kart, you are feeling a lot of the sensations that help you drive fast and well. And by the way, intuitively, through the G-forces and through the load and through the general vibrations of the car. So you can feel when you're really revving the car out and you're kind of like extracting all that power before you shift gear, and then you go into a lower RPM and then you build the RPM. You can kind of feel that in the car. You can also feel a high speed corner when you turn in. You're like, wow, I'm carrying a load of speed. It's very intuitive. You can also feel in a hairpin when you get on the power a bit too early and you feel the back end come out and you instinctively often just let off a little bit and counter steer. Those are all really intuitive things. In sim racing, we don't have those sustained G-forces. Now, I've tried all sorts of things like motion, the seatbelts. We just don't have sustained G-forces. The motion and the seatbelts can be good for feeling the weight transfer as you brake. And when I was racing Mazdas in Spain, I was really in tune with that weight transfer. Everything's on the front axle, and I need to let the car settle before I can actually get traction to the rear wheels. So it's good for that. But it's not really good for feeling that load mid-corner. For example, when I was Mazda racing in Spain, there was a very fast chicane, like flat-out chicane, and you could kind of feel the Mazda shifting around you, and you were able to very intuitively try and keep the traction, because yes, we're doing it flat out, but we want to maintain the traction. Now that you don't really get in a sim racing wheelbase inherently. Some things are starting to change now. So firstly, Logitech and Fanatec have true force and full force respectively. That gives you a lot of these kind of subtle vibrations that let you know what the car's doing. So for example, I like in true force and full force, I can feel what the car's doing when it's idling. I can feel what the car's doing more as I'm shifting gear. But again, it's not. Those are relatively small sensations. You also have more telemetry now coming through wheelbases, SimuCube telemetry, the V&M wheelbases as well, letting you know things like ABS, etc. I was trying SimuCube out in Germany recently. The ABS through the wheelbase was kind of insane. I actually think you're better off having the ABS through the wheelbase than the pedals, than the active pedals, which is kind of crazy. But these are little things around the edges. I've also seen in Germany now there's a new type of rig where it has cables attached to your helmet, so you can kind of like feel yourself being tweaked about. But we're never going to get one-to-one with the real thing, and we're a long way away. So what that means is the main input, the main force feedback input we have at the moment in sim racing, which is this shaft, because hardly anyone's running active pedals, And haptics is a whole thing with latency. Even when manufacturers say we don't have any latency, whether it's motion or haptics, there's still latency in the sim and through your PC getting there, by the way, which you don't have in real life. So anyway, this is the main input we have to feel what the car's doing in sim racing. And so we get a lot of other sensations here, including load, kind of like G-force load. We kind of feel the wheels heavy to kind of simulate. It doesn't work like that in real life. It doesn't work like that. You're feeling it yourself, but it's not like the steering wheel become like super, super heavy, at least not in a power steering like GT car. But in sim racing, we do that because otherwise we wouldn't be able to feel it as well. There's still a massive gap between, by the way, between real world racing drivers. They jump in a sim and they're like, I can't really feel anything. It's very much the exception to the norm that real world racing drivers are good in sims, like Max Verstappen. That is not really the norm, especially like consumer grade sims. So anyway, we're getting more sensations through the shaft, including load. That's where the more Newton meters can come in and be helpful. But I feel like at the moment, the hardware has charged ahead. So we're on like new generation wheelbases right now that have, 21, 22, 23, 24-bit encoders. All the developments and kind of slew rate and all these kind of things. But the sims haven't developed as much. And there's still a massive variety in the sims. And it's not a settled answer on what the best sim is. Is it iRacing? Is it LMU? Is it ACC? Is it rFactor 2? It's not a settled answer, which is kind of a little bit crazy. Most people would say like a Ferrari is a better car than a Fiat, but we don't really know in the sim world which is the best sim. And these sims deal with the load differently. So when I've been trying out the MOZA R25 recently, which is right here just out of shot, I've noticed in the Le Mans Ultimate that actually it doesn't give me a crazy amount of load when I'm going around slow speed corners, which gives me the ability to make fine adjustments and changes. But when I'm in iRacing, it's very difficult to have a setup that's giving me good load at high speed so I can feel the G-force, feel the load of the tyres, which is not super realistic, but I kind of want to feel it. But then also not make it unrealistically difficult in a hairpin. It's laughably bad sometimes how different it is in crazy sim racing equipment. I've tried out some mad motion rigs recently, like very expensive motion rigs, and I've come off the rigs and people have been telling me, how was that? And I'm like, that's just not how it is in real life. It shouldn't be really hard and getting shaken around with motion. When you're driving these cars in real life, it's very smooth, it's very controlled. And I spun a Ferrari GT out in America, but it's kind of, it's a really smooth thing. I wasn't fighting the car and I couldn't fight it anymore, and then I spun. I actually put in too much input. I had too much lock, and I was running very low TC, and I got on the power and I just spun it innocuously. Whereas that's quite difficult to do in high-end wheelbases when you're running them at high power. You're more likely to be fatigued and kind of understeering a lot of the time. Let me know in the comments if this is vibing with you, if you get it or not get it. I understand I'm in a very privileged position because I have done so much real-world karting and now doing more real-world driving as well. Make sure to subscribe if you want more videos like this as well. It really helps me out. So the question is, do you need these really powerful wheelbases? The answer most certainly is no, but it's not as simple as that. A MOZA R25 is much better than this Velocity 1 KD3 for most use cases. If you want to clamp it to your table and have some fun swapping it with friends in a party night on your Xbox, then this is actually better. It's like for some people, a smart car is better than a Ferrari. So I just want to make that clear as well, because I think we often get caught up in this arms race of like specs and everything, and like this is better specs, so it must be better. Not always the case. Something like a Logitech RS50 or a MOZA R9 or whatever the other brands have, La Prima. Even La Prima is quite powerful, but things in that price point and power bracket tend to be really good all-rounders, and you can run these sort of bases at 100%. Now, some people say you're going to get clipping, etc. Honestly, I would rather deal with clipping from time to time than have to constantly work out with a really powerful wheelbase how I should be running it in each sim and each car. Whereas a Logitech, I can just run at 100%. In the more powerful wheelbases, you're not going to be running that at 39 Newton meters. So you have to work out how you're going to dial that in. Are you going to limit it in the wheelbase software? Are you going to limit it in the iRacing software? iRacing is a bit funny where like you have to drive a little bit and then press like detect or whatever it is to kind of, it assesses your force feedback. And then there's the issues I've talked about in terms of it being too linear, also at low speed. So there's a lot more headaches there. There's something to be said for just having a mid-range wheelbase and you just run it 100% and you're happy, and you might be clipping a little bit and you might in a Formula car not be getting the full sensation sometimes. Another interesting thing I'm seeing is that there's more wheelbases that are doing overshoots. So, for example, the T598, 5 Newton meters, but overshoots temporarily to 10. The new Fanatec Podium DD, 25 Newton meters, but overshoots to like 33, I think. And actually, that kind of gives you the security, the safety. The Fanatec's probably an extreme of this, of you're not going to injure yourself, but also it can overshoot to like, you know, when you're going over curbs or it needs to overshoot for whatever reason. But it's in a way, it's a very subjective thing. We're at the cutting edge here because finally we're at the point where direct drive wheelbases are mainstream and the price is coming down, they're getting more powerful. So it's, you know, it's not like a remote issue for a lot of people. A lot of us more and more are going to have the choice of, do we get a 25 Newton meter wheelbase? And the price difference is not massive. This is what's kind of crazy. I mean, this wheelbase here is unbelievable. For 249 euros, if I remember, it's just crazy value. But even the MOZA R21 is $699, I believe. And even this Conspit Aries, I think, is something like £690. So the gaps are becoming closer. To go from something like a THRUSTMASTER T598 for 5 Newton meters, that I think at the moment might be like $499. The pricing is changing. For $200 more, you go from 5 Newton meters to the 21 Newton meters of a MOZA. That's going to be tempting a lot of people. But do you need it? Is it better? Well, a MOZA R21, I've tried the R25. So if the R21 is similar, that's just a much better wheelbase for most people than the T598. But there's still circumstances in which you might want a T598. It works on PlayStation, for example. You've got the THRUSTMASTER rim ecosystem. It's going to be much better on carpet generally in terms of that bundle. So it's a complicated one. Let me know what you think. I'm really interested to know what do sim racers think? We kind of know what brands think. We know that YouTubers are going to be really excited about most powerful wheelbases. I've always been a YouTuber. I think maybe because I'm part-time and I've come really from Gran Turismo, that's my home. I'm always really interested in like the entry level, like accessible stuff. But generally YouTubers are like, yeah, the bigger the better. But what do sim racers think? Make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments.